Hey there, I'm Krista with Krista Cox Studio, and today I'm doing this video to outline what you need to start your photography business. Now there's 5 things that I consider pretty essential, plus one more thing that most people don't really include in these tutorials, but I think it's pretty important. So let's get started. Title page, okay, so I'm going to start with the one thing that people don't usually include in these tutorials because that's interesting, I guess, but it's also what I consider one of the most important things, and that is to start a photography business, you need to have a business license. So while that's not necessarily like a physical camera or something you're using to better your skills, you want to keep things kosher here. So each state has different rules on what it takes to get a business license. So I'll include a link below to the website that I used to learn what I needed to get started. And it's really easy and kind of helps you outline or create a checklist of what you need to do. And it's going to include registering your name with your county, looking to see if your city has any license requirements, and getting an EIN number with the IRS. It sounds way scarier than it is. It's really not scary, and it's really easy. So just make sure you do that before you start taking money from people, just because you want to do things the right way. Okay, so the second thing that you gotta have to start a photography business is a camera. Now I would show you what camera I'm using now, but you're actually being videoed by it. So I use a 5D Mark IV. It's relatively new, within the scheme of cameras. And that's because I'm doing architectural photography, and I started using it for portrait photography and things like that, working on a military base, doing homecomings. And so it was, for me, I knew that I had a background in design, and I would dabble in the real estate photography field, so that's why I went ahead and did the full frame sensor. You don't have to have a super expensive camera to get started. There's some really good cameras like the 70, the 60. There's also some really good ones in the Rebel series that you can use if you're just getting started into photography and are still trying to figure out the ins and outs. I do have a video coming out on that in a few days, so you can either do the quiz that popped up on your page on how to choose which camera that you're doing to get notified of when that goes live, or you can subscribe and you'll get notified when it goes live. I'll also be putting it on Instagram and Facebook. So, gotta have a camera. Once you get your camera, then you need to look and see what kind of lenses you'll need. Now most of the entry-level cameras will come with a kit lens, and it's usually an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. It's decent, okay? It'll get the job done, but usually you're gonna need something else too. So if you're doing sports photography or even family photos out in the desert, then you might wanna look at getting some zoom lenses. If you are doing product photography, prime lenses are gonna be where you wanna go. And I would love for you guys to ask about all these lenses if you have questions on them down below. I'm going to save those for another video when it comes to explaining the different types of lenses and what the apertures and the focal lengths mean. But for now, just know you're probably going to want to get maybe 1 or 2 more lenses, if that. Not necessary at first, but I bet you'll be graduating to it soon. So the third thing that you're probably going to want to attach to your camera is a flash. It's pretty basic, you don't need anything fancy, and this also depends on what you're going to be using it for. If you are going to be doing event photography, you're probably going to want a pretty good flash because you'll be lighting up whole rooms and stuff like that. But if you're in your own studio, like maybe you're doing newborn photography, you don't need anything crazy, you just need something that'll do the job. And Canon has just a wide range of flashes that'll do what you need them to do. If you're going to be using a flash off the camera, be sure you get either a transmitter to go with it or get 2 flashes, which is how I do my setup, so that they can talk to each other and work from across the rooms. Okay. The 5th thing that I think everybody needs is editing software. Now, you may be good enough to just take a photo off the camera and send it on to the client, but chances are you're going to want to tweak things a little bit. Now, the most popular editing software by far is going to be Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop. Now, I started in graphic design, so just by default, I do all my editing in Photoshop and Camera Raw. But if you don't want to get the full version of Photoshop, Lightroom will do amazing things. And it's pretty much just a baby version of Photoshop. So look into those things. You can get an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription for Lightroom for about $10 a month. If you want to do more programs or go bigger, then they do have more expanded programs that you can look into, or subscriptions. And if you're old school like me and you're like, I don't want a subscription, even though I now have a subscription, check eBay for old copies of Photoshop. Like, you could probably get some good deals out there. Okay, now the final thing you need to have to start a photography business is a plan. So you can't just say, hey, let me take pictures for you, snap, snap, here you go. You kind of want to have some process in your head. And for example, my process, watered down version, is client says, hey, can you work for me? I say, yes, we're going to take a deposit. This is how much I charge. And once I take the photos, give me about a 2-week turnaround, and I'm going to deliver them to you in some way, form, or fashion. So you kind of want to have your mindset into the business mode if you're going to be doing this as a business, because otherwise the clients may think you're unorganized, or you just want to think of any questions that they might have before they get to them. So, for example, I also have a contract. When clients want to work with me, then say, sure, great, here's a contract, and it outlines, again, who's liable. If I don't show up, then they get a refund. If they don't show up, then I get to keep their deposit. This is how much you charge for the whole thing. This is how long you can expect it to last. This is how I'll deliver. That's all outlined in the contract so that there's no questions about how the process works. And if anybody falls through, it's already structured as to what steps need to be taken. There's resources for these everywhere for a photography contract. It doesn't necessarily have to be complicated. If you're really worried, go talk to an attorney about it, get them to okay everything. There's also online contracts that you can buy, such as if you visit The Contract Shop, they have a lot of good contracts that are already just legally looked through, good to go. Me, I'm not doing high dollar shoots like weddings. I'm not doing thousands of dollars worth of photo shoots in a single day. Instead, I'm doing smaller sessions, so it's not that big a deal. If a client just isn't happy, then we have steps to take and it's fine. But you definitely want to have that contract in place so that that outline is there. I mentioned pricing a second ago. How are you going to price yourself? Side note, I beg you, please do not undersell yourself. Don't be like, oh, I'm just starting out, I'll charge you $50 for a full shoot. Please don't do that, because one, you are worth way more than that. You have the equipment, you've got an eye, the settings may or may not be different, they can be changed in Photoshop. You are worth so much more than that. I would seriously not do a photo shoot less than $150, even in the beginning, because not only does it devalue you and tell the client that you don't think you're strong enough, but it also devalues the entire industry, because folks will say, oh, you charge $300 for this, well, so-and-so charges $75, I can go do it for them. So now the one person's out of work and the second person is working for way less than they should. So it's just I beg you, out of anything ever, if I could ever ask you to do anything, and that's charge what you're worth. And in a future video, I'll be going over how to set your pricing and kind of how to get a good structure that's not going to give people sticker shock, but also makes it worth your time. We'll talk about that in the future. Again, if you want to be notified when that post goes up, be sure to subscribe below. And the last thing about your plan that I think you need to be thinking about in advance is how are you going to deliver the photos? So some people will just put them on a USB, hand them to the client, which is fine if you know you're going to be able to see your client. Me, if I travel all over the state to do a photo shoot, it's not very feasible for me to put a USB in the mail or just hand it to them because we're not going to see each other. So I use online software where I upload my photos into an online gallery and I email them the link and they go to it, and it's easy to download. They have everything where it's at, no problems. And so I personally use a program called Pixieset. It is a subscription, so you pay per year, but it's just way more simple than me trying to track people down after I've already finished the photos. So that's just something else for you to think about when you're starting your business. So that pretty much sums up what I think you need to get started. My husband actually gave me one of my favorite quotes ever, and that is that 70% of a good plan is way better than 100% of a perfect plan. So just get out there, get started. You can always tweak things as you go. Just make sure you kind of have these things set in place. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions or comments, let me know below, and subscribe. And I'm tired of saying and. That's all. Thanks. Bye.